After covering my parents' bills for 5 years, I missed one payment when I got laid off. The next morning, I found my belongings in trash bags and a note on the door. This isn't a retirement plan. My mom said, "You're an adult. Start acting like it." I spent that night in my car until I logged into their shared online account and saw the transfers in my name, and when I sent it to their bank. This is long. I'm not great at writing, but I need to get it out. I haven't told anyone everything before. Not even my closest friend. Not even the girl I dated for a while. During all of this, she always said something felt off with my family. I lied and said everything was fine. I'm 29 now. This started when I was 24. My dad had his second heart attack that summer. He was a forklift operator at a warehouse for most of my life. Not a high-paying job, but stable. My mom hadn't worked in years. She quit when I was in high school and never really talked about why, just said she was done with all that stress. After that, she stayed home and watched TV all day. I think the plan was always to depend on me once I graduated. I didn't see it back then. I do now. When Dad got sick, I had just started my first full-time job after college, marketing assistant at a small company. The pay was low, but I was proud to have benefits and some stability. I was renting a small one-bedroom with 2 other roommates. When my mom called and said we might lose the house, I packed up and moved back home that weekend. It was supposed to be temporary. Help out for a few months, save up, and move out again. That was 5 years ago. At first, I paid small things, groceries, gas, takeout, then the phone bill, then their car insurance. Then, when I got promoted after a year, the mortgage, just for this month, my mom said, but that month turned into every month. They stopped even pretending to try. No job hunting, no plans, just full days of sitting in the living room with the TV on max volume. They ordered DoorDash like they were retired millionaires. Every time I asked about getting back to work or budgeting, they got defensive. My mom would say things like, "After everything we did for you growing up, this is the least you can do." My dad barely talked anymore, just nodded along or shrugged. Anytime I brought up moving out, my mom would act like I'd threatened to kill her. "Oh, so you're just going to abandon us when we're struggling?" Or "Wow." So we raised a selfish adult. Once, she cried for 2 hours straight when I said I was thinking of getting my own place. I gave in. Every time. I was paying almost everything by year 3. All bills were in my name. The house was still in theirs, but they didn't pay a cent toward it. I paid the utilities, food, gas, streaming services, medical bills, insurance, even for their pets' vet visits. I didn't have savings anymore. I had no social life either. Every time I tried to go out with friends, my mom would call and say the internet stopped working or ask when I'd be home to help her fix the printer or look at her phone. It was always something. I stopped dating. My last girlfriend broke up with me because she said I was emotionally trapped. She wasn't wrong. She said, "You're still living like a teenager under their control. I don't think they even see you as a person." That one stuck with me. I still hear it. Then, in December of last year, I got laid off. No warning, just a short meeting, and then I was logged out of my work accounts. They said they were restructuring, and my position was cut. No severance, just leftover PTO in the final paycheck. I went home that night and told my parents. My voice was shaking when I said it. I wasn't even asking them to take care of me. I just said I'd need help with the mortgage for maybe a month or 2. I'd already started applying to jobs. I had a little saved, but not enough to cover everything. My dad didn't look at me. My mom didn't say anything for a long time. Then she sighed and said, "Well, that's not ideal." That was it. No follow-up. No, we'll figure it out. Just silence. I went in my room. Didn't sleep much that night. Sent out more applications. Told myself it would be fine. The next morning, I woke up, and my phone was blowing up with texts from my mom. "Your things are outside. This isn't a retirement plan. You're an adult. Start acting like it." I thought it was a joke. I got up, walked to the front door, and saw trash bags lining the porch. Black plastic bags stuffed with my clothes, my laptop, my toothbrush. Even my college diploma was in there, bent and half sticking out of the bag. I tried my key in the door. It didn't work. They changed the locks. I knocked. No answer. I called. Straight to voicemail. I sat in my car for hours, just sitting there, parked a few blocks away, in total disbelief. I kept thinking they didn't mean it. They'll come around. They didn't. That night, I slept in my car in a Target parking lot. It was freezing. I kept waking up every hour. My back hurt. I felt nauseous. I didn't know who to call. I was too embarrassed. I couldn't stop thinking, how did it come to this? Around 3 or 4 a.m., I remembered something. Months earlier, my mom had asked me to set up their online banking. She didn't like dealing with tech stuff, so I linked her account, showed her how to log in, and made sure her phone could access it. She barely used it, but I remembered the login. I figured maybe I could check to see if they had savings. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe they were stressed and panicking like I was. I logged in. At first, it looked normal. But then I noticed a second tab, External Accounts. There was one with my name on it. My name. My SSN. My old email. I clicked on it. Dozens of transfers. Credit card payments. A $6,000 personal loan. A line of credit. Purchases I never made. Statements going back nearly 2 years. All linked to accounts I didn't know existed. Most of them were opened in my name. The balances were maxed. Some payments had been missed. I checked the statements and almost threw up. They had been using my identity. All the while I was working full-time and giving them every spare dollar, they were secretly opening credit under my name. My name was on loans I never took, cards I never saw. They forged my e-signature. They created email addresses that looked like mine. They used my birthday, my SSN, everything. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the screen like my body had left itself. All those years I thought I was helping, that I was being a good son, that maybe one day they'd be proud of me. And the whole time, they were stealing from me. It wasn't just financial. It was the way they looked at me like I was nothing the second I wasn't useful anymore. The way they planned this. How calmly they locked me out and told me to start acting like an adult. I sat in my car until the sun came up. Then I drove to the nearest branch of their bank. The banker was a woman in her 40s. She wore a red cardigan and had reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. I didn't plan what to say. I just walked in, waited in line like everyone else, and when she called me over, I put my phone on the counter and said, "I think my parents committed fraud in my name." She blinked at me like she didn't understand. I showed her the screenshots, the transfers, the account information, the credit card statements with my name, but their address. I showed her the loan with my forged signature and email. At some point, my hands started shaking, but I didn't stop talking. She got very quiet. Then she stood up and said, "I'm going to get my manager." They took me into a back room and asked more questions. I told them everything, how I lived with them, how I paid for everything, how I only found this after they kicked me out. I gave them my real email, my ID, my SSN. They confirmed the loans and cards were all opened from the same IP address, my parents' home internet. The bank manager said they would escalate it to their fraud department and freeze the accounts immediately. They helped me start the process to file a police report. They said I would likely need to sign affidavits and maybe even give a statement. They also told me something I didn't know. Some of the loans had already been sent to collections. That night, I checked my credit score for the first time in months. It had dropped over 200 points. 2 of the cards were already in default. A third had a missed payment and a late fee that was building interest every day. My name was attached to nearly $18,000 in debt I had never seen or touched. I sat on the floor of my car in a gas station parking lot, and I just stared at my phone. At some point, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because I think my brain didn't know what else to do. I kept thinking about the way my mom used to say, "Families help each other," or how she once told me, "You'd be homeless if it weren't for us." Meanwhile, I had been covering their bills for 5 years, and now I really was homeless. I didn't call them. I didn't text. I started sleeping in the car behind the gym where I still had an active membership. I'd go in to shower, brush my teeth, then drive to the library during the day to look for jobs. I applied to everything: retail, admin, even jobs in warehouses. I stopped being picky. I just needed income. 2 weeks passed. Then, one morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a detective. He asked if I was available to talk in person. We met at a police station the next day. He asked me to go over everything I'd already told the bank. He looked at the documents, took copies of the emails and screenshots. He was professional, but you could see it in his eyes. He'd seen this before. When we finished, he said something I'll never forget. You need to be prepared for the possibility that this won't end clean. Family fraud is the worst kind. It's emotional, it's ugly, and it almost never goes the way you want it to. I asked what that meant. He said if the DA picked it up, my parents could be charged. But if they denied everything, it would be my word against theirs unless the bank's records were airtight. And even then, I'd have to show that I didn't give them permission, that I wasn't complicit. He also said something else. They've done this before. I froze. What? He said their names had shown up in a different report years ago. Someone else had filed a complaint about unauthorized use of identity. It wasn't followed through. It never became a case, but it was there, buried in the system. I walked out of the station, feeling like someone had pushed me off a cliff. Everything I thought was just desperation or bad choices, it was bigger. They'd done this before. Maybe not to this level. Maybe not to someone as close. But it wasn't new. It wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. A few days later, I got a message on Facebook from my cousin. She said, "Hey, Aunt Lisa said you've been spreading lies about them. She's really hurt. Said you stole money and ran off." I didn't reply. Then another message. This one from a family friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. He said, "My mom told everyone I'd had a breakdown, quit my job, and got into drugs, that I emptied her savings and disappeared." I couldn't believe it. I mean, I could, but it still hit like a punch to the stomach. They were trying to destroy my name to cover their own mess. And here's where it got even worse. About a week later, I finally got a part-time job at a warehouse. Not great pay, but enough to start crawling out. I was at the job for 3 days when HR pulled me into an office and said there had been a problem with my background check. Turns out, someone had reported fraudulent activity tied to my SSN to the IRS. The detective later told me it looked like someone had tried to claim me as a dependent this year and possibly the year before. Even though I hadn't lived with them since January, even though I paid every bill in my name, so now the IRS was flagging my taxes, and guess who had claimed me? Yeah, there's more, but I need a break. I still haven't decided what to do next. I'm not sure how far to take this. The detective said, I have options: civil suit, possible charges, but it'll take time and energy, and part of me is just so tired. I thought I was helping my family. Turns out I was just fuel for their lives. 3 weeks after I started the warehouse job, I was slowly getting used to the routine. Night shifts, heavy lifting, but at least it was income. I was finally eating more than instant noodles. I had just gotten a cheap motel room I could afford week to week, so I wasn't living out of my car anymore. Then a letter came. It was from a debt collection agency I didn't recognize. The envelope was thin, but when I opened it, my hands started shaking again. It was a court summons. One of the loans in my name had been defaulted, and the bank was suing for repayment. Almost $8,000. I called the number listed and tried to explain the fraud case. They didn't care. They just said, "Until it's resolved, you're the debtor of record." I called the detective. He said he'd add it to the case file, but that it wouldn't stop civil suits automatically. "This is the problem with family fraud," he said again. "You end up fighting on every front while they sit at home and deny everything." While I was dealing with that, another twist hit. A friend from high school messaged me on Instagram. We hadn't talked in years. He said, "Hey, your mom's been saying some weird stuff about you. Are you okay?" I asked what he meant. He sent me screenshots. My mom was posting on Facebook that I had stolen from them, abandoned them, racked up debt in their names, and tried to ruin their credit. She was telling people she and my dad were the victims. The comments were full of sympathy for them. People saying, "What a terrible son. How could he do this to you? You deserve better." They were rewriting the story while I was still in the middle of it, and then a week later, something happened that made my stomach turn. I got an email from my old landlord, the one from my first apartment before I moved home. He said he'd gotten a call from someone pretending to be me, asking for my old lease agreement, my social, and my pay stubs from that time. He didn't give it out because it sounded fishy. He just wanted to warn me. I didn't even have to guess who it was. The detective later confirmed there were new credit inquiries under my name. Someone had tried to open another card after the bank froze the old ones. It had been denied because of the fraud flag, but they were still trying. Still trying. Like they couldn't stop. It started feeling less like desperation and more like addiction. Like they weren't just using my money, but the thrill of taking it, the rush of getting away with it. Then one night, as I was leaving my shift at the warehouse, I saw a car idling across the street. It was my dad's old truck, the one I used to pay insurance for. I froze. I didn't go up to it. I just watched from a distance. The windows were tinted, but I swear I saw my mom's hair in the passenger seat. They stayed parked there for 10 minutes, then drove off. No call, no message, just watching. I told the detective the next day. He told me to start documenting everything. Save every message, every screenshot, take pictures if I could. He said, if this escalates, you're going to want a paper trail. So now, on top of everything, debt collectors, court summons, IRS flags, I had to start looking over my shoulder at night leaving work, wondering if my own parents were following me. And then last week, the detective called again. He said they'd found another victim, a woman who used to rent a room in my parents' house years ago. They'd done something similar to her, opened a store card in her name while she lived there. It never went to court, but she filed a complaint that matched their pattern exactly. He said this could help my case, that it showed a pattern of behavior. But part of me just wanted to throw up. How many people had they done this to? How long had they been planning it? Did they start on me the second I moved back in? And the biggest question of all, if they're willing to ruin my credit, take my money, smear my name, and stalk me at work, what's next? I kept my head down after that. Work, motel, eat, sleep, repeat. I tried not to think too far ahead because every time I did, I felt overwhelmed. I had a court date coming up for the loan I didn't take, still no word from the DA on the fraud case, and my credit was still in the toilet. I started having chest pain at night. Thought it might be a heart issue, but a nurse at the free clinic said it was probably stress. I believed her. Then one day, I got a call from HR at work. They said someone had submitted an anonymous complaint to corporate. Said I was using a fake name and had a criminal record related to theft and identity fraud. I couldn't breathe for a second. I asked them to repeat it. The HR rep said they were required to look into it because it came with an attached report. It was a half-page PDF, no letterhead, no official source, just plain text claiming I had been investigated for stealing from family members and misusing their financial information. It even listed my full name and birthday. I asked to see it. They sent it to me. The wording, it sounded exactly like my mother's voice. The same passive-aggressive tone. The same overuse of ungrateful and manipulative. I recognized phrases she used when I was younger, stuff she'd say when she was trying to paint herself as the victim. It wasn't just identity theft anymore. They were trying to ruin my life on paper. The HR department said they weren't taking any action yet, but they'd be doing an internal review. I could already feel the coldness in their tone, like a door slowly starting to close. That night, I called the detective again, told him everything. He said this kind of retaliation isn't uncommon in family fraud cases, especially when the perpetrators feel cornered. He told me I needed to consider getting a restraining order. That hit me hard, like I had to finally say it out loud. I needed protection from my own parents. But here's where it got even more twisted. The next morning, I checked my email and saw a message from a job recruiter I'd been talking to a month earlier, one of the few promising leads I had. We'd had a phone interview and things were going well. He said he was finalizing the background check and just needed confirmation of my last 3 years of residence. Except in his new message, he wrote, "Hey, I just got off the phone with someone from your previous address. They claimed you were never living there and that you've been using their address fraudulently. Can you clarify?" I sat there staring at the screen. I'd used my parents' address on my resume and for tax records because I lived there for 5 years. It was my legal residence. I paid all the bills. My name was on the mortgage payments. But now they were telling people I never lived there. I replied to the recruiter, explained everything, attached documents, sent him part of the fraud case summary. He didn't reply. Another door. Closed. I knew then that this wasn't just about money anymore. They wanted to erase me, not just push me out, not just bleed me dry, but destroy any version of me that could survive without them. Like if they couldn't control me, they had to make sure I couldn't land on my feet anywhere else. I started documenting everything more carefully after that. Screenshots, call logs, photos. I bought a cheap dash cam for my car in case they followed me again. Then, just 2 nights ago, I got a call from an unknown number. It was my mom. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I listened to it once. I've replayed it maybe 50 times since. Her voice was calm, almost sweet. "Hey, honey, I know you've been a little confused and upset lately. We forgive you. We know you're just under a lot of pressure and probably listening to the wrong people. We want you to come home. Let's start fresh. No more drama. Just be smart and let's all move forward, okay? No apology. No ownership. Just gaslighting. You're confused. We forgive you." That voicemail shook me more than anything else because it sounded like bait, like they were trying to reset the whole thing, rewrite the story one more time, but this time with me back under their roof, where they could control the version of events, where they could make it disappear. I forwarded the voicemail to the detective. He called me right away and said, "Don't go back. That's not an invitation. That's a trap." I'm not sure where this is going yet. The case is still open. I'm still dealing with the fallout. But now, I'm starting to wonder, how far are they willing to go if I don't stop them first? After that voicemail, I stopped sleeping. Every creak outside the motel made me think they'd found me. Every unknown call felt like another lie. I kept working my night shift, kept sending out job applications, but the weight of it all was like a constant brick on my chest. The detective called again 2 weeks later. The DA had decided to press charges: 2 counts of fraud, 2 counts of identity theft, 1 count of falsifying loan documents. He said it wasn't everything they'd done, but it was enough to start. He asked if I would testify. I said yes. The weeks leading up to court were the longest of my life. I worked at the warehouse, then spent my off hours organizing evidence, emails, bank statements, screenshots, the dashcam footage from the night I saw their truck near my job. My hands shook every time I opened the folders. Sometimes I hated myself for saying yes to the case. Other times I imagined my parents sitting there in court, finally being forced to hear the truth. When the first hearing came, I walked into the courtroom and almost turned around. My mom and dad were sitting at the defendant's table. My mom wore a neat blouse, her hair done like she was going to brunch. My dad looked tired but stone-faced. They didn't look at me at first. Then my mom turned, smiled, and mouthed, "We love you." It made me want to scream. The DA went over the evidence, the IP logs, the forged signatures, the accounts opened in my name, the credit reports, the voicemail from my mom telling me to come home right after they'd tried to smear me. The other victim from years ago testified, too. When it was my turn to speak, I told the truth. I didn't embellish. I said I moved home at 24. I paid their bills for 5 years. I thought I was helping my parents. I said I was too weak to set boundaries. I admitted that. I ignored red flags, that I didn't check my credit, that I let them make me small because I thought it was my duty to take care of them. By the time I finished, my mom was crying. My dad kept staring at the table. It was like the air in the room shifted. Their lawyer tried to argue it was a family dispute, that I had given implicit permission, that I was bitter because I'd lost my job, but the bank records were too clear. The fake email accounts, the devices tied to their Wi Fi, the tax filings claiming me as a dependent when I was paying their mortgage. The judge ordered a full restitution investigation and froze their remaining assets. That's when the real twist came. While digging through their accounts for restitution, the DA's office found a storage unit under my dad's name. Inside were boxes of paperwork, credit applications, old IDs, bank statements for other people, former tenants, old neighbors, even a family friend, all of them potential victims. It wasn't just me. This was their thing. And now it was all out in the open. When the verdict came, they were both convicted. Not on every count. The DA warned me that family fraud cases rarely end with perfect justice, but enough to send them away for a few years and lock down their finances. When the judge read the sentence, my mom turned around, looked straight at me, and said, "You ruined our lives." I didn't say anything. I just walked out. It wasn't a clean victory. My credit was still trashed. My name was still tied up in court documents. The warehouse job let me go due to the distraction. Friends I thought I had were gone. Some family members still think I lied. But for the first time in years, I felt something like air coming back into my lungs. I found a small apartment. Not much, but it's mine. I work 2 jobs now, one in a shipping office during the day, one bartending at night. Slowly, I'm rebuilding. Slowly, I'm learning what it means to have boundaries. I know I made mistakes. I let myself be used. I thought being a good son meant being a martyr. I thought if I gave enough, they'd love me back. That was my mistake. Their mistake was thinking I'd never wake up. I don't hate them. I don't even think about revenge anymore. What I feel is colder than that. They built their whole life on using people. They thought I'd be their last score. Instead, I was the one who finally put a stop to it. I didn't ruin their lives. I just stopped letting them ruin mine. And that was enough.